Welcome, friends. This is Richard Wolff with another Wolff Responds. Today is May 2nd, 2024, and my topic for today is the movement, the encampments, the struggles on campuses across the United States. What is this about? What does it mean? And I hope to be able to offer in a few minutes some dimensions of this other than what is in the mainstream media. First and foremost, young people who are students in universities have every right and ought to be supported by their faculty and administrators in studying major world affairs, coming to conclusions based on their studies, and making a public declaration of how they see the issues and what they would like of their government's policies toward those issues. Nothing is inappropriate, nothing is wrong, nothing is new about that. It is inappropriate to deny students that right and that opportunity. The purpose of campuses is the opposite, to make those opportunities available. Of course, no one is asking for students to have the right to destroy property or to commit violence against one another or anyone else. That's not the issue here, and it should not have been introduced. If it is the case that anyone is offended or upset by free speech, then it is appropriate not to silence the speaker, but to arrange either for the upset person to go somewhere else and be upset, or at a respectful distance to make their own alternative views publicly known. And if the police are ever to come into this process, it is to make it safe for both or multiple sides who have something to say it. Just as the police do when people are pro and con a sports team, or pro and con a celebrity, or pro and con what's going on inside a courtroom trying ex-President Trump, etc. Police are trained in that. That's the limit of what police are relevant for. It is irrelevant and contrary to the right of free speech and assembly to call the police for any other purpose, or for the police to perform any other function. They should know by their training how to keep separate people who disagree. The police do it all the time. It is a fakery of our government to hide the effort to repress pro-Palestinian perspectives on Gaza under the guise of there being violence or there being real estate owned by a university that they can clear free speakers from. It's shameful that this kind of effort is made. The second thing I would like to bring up is that the expression of views about ceasefire, about a divesting from Israeli defense industries, and so on, are issues that are widely debated around the world. It is 100% appropriate for students to participate in discussing these issues, to reach their conclusions, and to want to speak freely about it. Anyone who wants to shut them down is operating contrary to the point and purpose of education, of the freedom of speech and assembly, and of the position of the United States in the world today. It is a proud moment when students refuse to be muzzled in this gross and inappropriate way. It is shameful, again, for universities to be complicit in the political agenda to do so. And once again, if on either side or from outside there were to be individuals who do not respect free speech, who want to introduce violence or some other form of repressing one side or the other, then it is the job of the authorities to prevent that from happening. They have no other appropriate function. All of this reminds me and people my age of what happened around the war in Vietnam. Before I make that comparison, let me remind you about the outcome. The war in Vietnam cost huge numbers of lives. The war in Vietnam wasted hundreds of billions of dollars worth of very valuable objects, Vietnamese and American, and killed, as I said, horrifically. The war was also lost by the United States in 1975. The people against whom the United States waged war, people organized in and around the Communist Party of Vietnam, ended up winning the war, unifying the country, and ruling it ever since to this moment. There is going to be an outcome of what is going on in Gaza. We can't know what it is now, but be careful of imagining that anyone knows how this will end. We do know that at this point, the United States is in an absolutely bizarre situation. The United States is providing the funds and the weapons that Israel is in large part using in the destruction of Gaza that has been going on since last October. The devastation done to the people in Gaza is known everywhere in the world. You see it on TV almost every night. The United States' bizarre position is that it is now providing humanitarian aid through a pier being constructed off the coast of Gaza. In other words, the United States is funding and providing the resources to cause horrific damage and then to serve the damaged people with humanitarian support. The logic here is people are dying, resources are being used, when the obviously better arrangement would be not to fund the killing in Gaza any further, thereby saving the money, saving the lives, and making the humanitarian aid either unnecessary or a short-term event because the war would be over. That's what the people advocating ceasefire have tried to argue. And those people include many around the world, most of the members of the United Nations, the Pope, and a large, longer list. Those are the forces to whom the students asking for ceasefire, asking for divestment, that's the source of their information. That's who they're allied with. There's nothing odd, strange, bizarre, or dangerous about what our students are doing. They're being the smartest ones in the room, on the campus. They care, they learn, they speak, they gather, they ask for information from faculty, they share with one another. In short, they're doing exactly what they ought to be doing. Shame on those who would get in their way. Shame on those not content with articulating a different point of view. Fine. If you wish to be pro-Israeli, whatever you mean by that, fine. Make your case. State your views. Assemble your arguments. That's what free speech means. Threatening other people because of what they say is when you are approaching the line you cannot cross. Otherwise, we don't have free speech. It is very hard not to come away from looking at these events as resulting ultimately from a government that has taken its position, which is to support Israel pretty much down the line, to quote our president. And it is therefore difficult not to reach the conclusion that repressing students who believe otherwise on American campuses is an attempt to shut down disagreement, to shut down dissent. It's the fear of the people who run the society that their arguments aren't good enough, that the situation is persuading people otherwise from what they're doing. And they don't want to face the political consequences of the choices they have made. They should not be allowed to undo the tradition of free speech that so many worked so hard for such a long time to establish in the United States, and above all, on its campuses, where young people who will be running this society are learning what that means. This is Richard Wolff for Wolff Responds. Thank you for your attention.